Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast. We're running a little late here, so gonna try and make this an efficient segment here, talking about the Edmonton Oilers, who were able to even up the series last night with a 5-2 win against the Dallas Stars in the Western Conference Finals. And it was a little bit reminiscent, it felt like, at least early on in sort of the script that this all played out, of the Game 3 matchup, where in that one, it was the Oilers jumping out to the 2-0 lead and watching the tide sort of turn right in front of our eyes, where other way around in this game, the Stars scored 58 seconds into this game and just absolutely controlled the first few minutes. They built up a 2-0 lead on their first 4 shots of the night, and it did feel like this was going to be a little bit detrimental to Stuart Skinner coming off of that rough finish to Game 3, where specifically that goal that he allowed in the third period is really what did them in. It was a little bit weak of, it was Robertson just sort of stuffing the puck in the post right past him. And, you know, the second goal really wasn't his fault in this Game 4 matchup. It took a very unfortunate bounce off of his defender, Darnell Nurse's leg, and just sort of squeaked into the net from there. But it was interesting how that second goal goes in. Again, second and 4 shots. The broadcast sort of jumps right to this fan that looks very upset in the stands, and he sort of started giving, it looked like, Skinner the get him out of here finger point. And, you know, again, this was a very unfortunate goal for Skinner, but I thought that that moment at least was pretty indicative of where this series seemed to be, where Skinner was this big storyline coming out of Game 3. If he continues to struggle in this one, I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised whatsoever if they ended up pulling him, but instead it was the rest of the team that really picked him up and limited the damage from then on out, where they stayed calm, they started putting together good shifts, and they ended up tying the game up before the end of the period, where Corey Perry, who hadn't dressed since Game 5, I believe it was, in the Vancouver series, he came back playing on that second line, and, you know, alongside as well in this situation, Ryan McLeod, who had also not dressed last game, and he helped sort of lead a break for them, get a shot on net, and then it was Darnell Nurse at that point as well, who was really impactful for them, just sort of causing a little bit of chaos in front of the net. And in the end, Ryan Suter of the Stars fell into his own goalie, Jake Ottinger, basically at the same time of Corey Perry's shot. The puck pops loose, and it was Ryan McLeod able to sort of come in and clean up that play while Ottinger was knocked over. So that regained some of the momentum. By the way, the energy in Edmonton last night, it was so electric leading into it. The way that it entirely dissipated, it felt like, through those first 7 minutes or so, and the way that they were able to respond, just such a fun, you know, playoff hockey in Canada especially is a special thing. But the Oilers then went on to tie that game up later in the first period with a McDavid break. He sort of then, you know, those who know hockey maybe better than me could maybe give a little bit of a better explanation. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about starting, just putting the puck on net. He shoots it on a break, and it goes right off of Ottinger's pad and bounces right out. It looked like it would have been like sort of a perfect bank shot pass to fall into the stuck of the stick, I should say, of Evan Bouchard, who puts it back in. So, you know, at the end of the day, it was kind of no harm, no foul for falling down behind 0-2 in that game. And then In the second period, we saw sort of the benefits of that momentum shift heading into it, where it started with the first special teams goal finally of this series. Both of these teams were scoreless on the power play headed into this game, but that does remain the case because the the special teams goal came on a shorthander for the Oilers, where they got a little bit of a fast break opportunity 2-on-1, and it was Janmark who was able to put it in to take the lead. And then the Oilers, as they sort of frequently do, understanding that the penalty is running to an end and you were about to get another man back, sort of load up with their top guys, McDavid and Draisaitl, and they come through once again. McDavid makes a steal, sort of relays it up to Neiman, and it was Draisaitl, who hadn't scored in either of the previous two games, nets his goal, and ultimately the Oilers just sort of ride this one to a victory. And it's been a crazy series. Wayne Gretzky had that pretty funny comment where it was something along the lines of, the one thing we know about this series is that we know nothing about this series. And yeah, I mean, the momentum shifts all the way throughout this series up to this point. It's been a roller coaster, but that's what playoff hockey is all about. And we are currently sitting on two really entertaining conference finals series. And it is one of those situations where it doesn't feel like we have any type of a Cinderella run up to this point. And as much as we do sort of love those darling teams, it feels like the right four teams are currently still in the playoff picture, and it's been incredible hockey and execution up to this point that it has been super entertaining to watch. The Oilers ended up getting their fifth goal on an empty netter. There was a little bit of controversy that came with it. I think that there was that Robertson play where Bouchard ends up taking a hit to the face, but he made the pass anyways, and then the Oilers were able to sort of relay it up the ice and end up getting that long shot empty netter to fall. Do you think the lineup changes made by I always mispronounce his name, but the coach for the Oilers can continue to work in this series? I mean, Gretzky talked about it a lot during the intermission reports, that it was a pretty smart job of him to organize the lineups the way that he did last night, in terms of the Oilers were dealing with a variety of different injuries, and having Corey Perry and having McLeod both return in this game, inserting them high up in the lineups to be able to sort of function in a higher powered offense to get comfortable. I thought that Corey Perry was excellent last night. He was involved on a couple different scoring opportunities, but he made some nice defensive plays as well in this game. He had a big deflection at one point on a Dallas fast break. So I think that it's definitely, they're in a great position as things currently stand right now. I think that the biggest part of it is sort of trying to find a way to protect Skinner. Again, had a nice bounce back last night to be able to calm himself after the messy start, especially when that second goal goes in off of Nurse and it just feels like he can't catch a break, to be able to settle himself back down and get into that game. But at the same time, we saw the Stars really held from an offensive perspective, and the pressure didn't have to be on Skinner at that point, because we know when this Oilers offense is clicking that they absolutely get results. One other quick thing here, should probably mention at least before moving on, is the fact that the Stars were, I mean, everybody obviously in every sport is dealing with injuries up to this point in the postseason. But last night we saw Dallas really sort of start to have some of these pile up, and the most significant one was Chris Tanev, who took a shot off of his ankle during the second period. he went to the bench, and he was sitting there for a couple minutes before then eventually making his way down the bench and went into the locker room, was ruled out for the remainder of the game. This is somebody who was in the top of the league, third in blocked shots during the regular season, a massive part of what Dallas does, which is they feel like a very complete team. They have a good defense in front of one of the best goalies in the league, best performing goalies, at least right now, in Ottinger. And we don't necessarily have an update. Knowing hockey and knowing Tanev, he probably will be back at some point, but definitely a tough loss for Dallas last night. Ideally, they are able to get him back. I believe we have, I'm going to double check real quick, but I believe we got Game 5 tomorrow night. Going to be in Dallas, so we'll see if the Stars can respond in that game. As things currently stand, they are minus 130 favorites in that one. So let us know your predictions in the comment section. But we're going to be taking our final break of the show now. And when we come back on the other side, we had a very interesting, little bit controversial series of events take place in the MLB yesterday, where we saw the Mets involved in a little bit of a miscommunication led to a DFA, but we will dive into that whole story after this quick break. Stick with us, and we will be right back.